Madam President, I rise today, and I hate to say it, to point out that we've again witnessed a gridlock at its worst on the heels of this vote that just concluded. When the Senate was given a chance to lead on critical issues crucial to our national security, to our troops, and to our leadership in the 21st century, I hate again to say it, the Senate's let politics obstruct progress that we should make. And Madam President, this is the second time this year that we've prevented ourselves, if you will, from debating critical national security issues. And like so many other debates that we've wanted to have this year, this one was derailed by obstruction, I believe, before it even began. The last time the minority party blocked debate of the National Defense Authorization Act, they argued that the DREAM Act should not be considered as an amendment to the bill, and that we needed to wait on the report of the Pentagon study group on how to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell before we could vote on the broader bill. Well, this time we did consider the DREAM Act in a separate vote. And this time after voting today, we voted after the Pentagon's task force on Don't Ask, Don't Tell has weighed in with the most comprehensive review of a personnel policy the DoD has ever conducted on any policy that was being proposed. But the obstruction continues still, and there are new excuses this time. Opponents now say that we need to extend tax breaks before we can consider legislation necessary to ensure our national security. And it doesn't seem to matter to those who voted no today that the Pentagon study group looking at repeal confirmed what many of us have been saying for years, that Don't Ask, Don't Tell can be overturned without disrupting our nation's military readiness. And it doesn't seem to matter to these opponents that Secretary Gates, Admiral Mullen, and a host, literally a host of other military and civilian leaders believe that repeal by a federal judge would be far more disruptive and damaging to readiness and morale than repeal through the legislation that's been thoughtfully and comprehensively drafted by the Congress. This wide-ranging and highly respected group of military and civilian leaders has strongly urged us, the Senate, to act on this defense authorization bill this month. Now, unlike what some on the other side of the aisle have claimed, the repeal language in this legislation respects the Pentagon's timeline, and it gives our military leaders the flexibility they say they need to implement repeal in a way that tracks with military standards and guidelines. And the best way to change the policy is for elected representatives, that's us, to pass the legislation before us now and to do it this year. But the vote we just had means that we'll have no debate on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And just as importantly, and I know the presiding officer serves on the Foreign Relations Committee, it thwarts a serious discussion about pressing national security issues. Imagine that. We're prevented from debating fundamental national security concerns at a time of two wars. People in my state of Colorado, they don't understand such obstruction, and I don't think Americans all across the country do. And this is further illuminated because every year for nearly a half century, Congress has taken up and passed a bill renewing our defense policies for the nation for the coming year. That's 48 years consecutively. And this defense authorization bill, like all those that came before it, is as critically important as the 49 that have preceded it. It provides funding for our military operations in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iraq. It supports our service members, and it keeps Americans safe through needed resources and policies, including fair and competitive pay and benefits for our men and women in uniform. The bill also includes many important provisions directed at the health and needs of our service members' families. Specifically, if I might, Madam President, I want to mention a provision that I authored with help from other of my colleagues, which would extend health insurance for military families, enabling children of active duty service members and retirees to stay on their parents' policies until they turn age 26. It's similar to what we did in the Affordable Care Act last year and this year, more broadly for Americans. And also, importantly, this legislation provides improved care for our wounded service members and their families, not just the physical wounds of war, but also the mental wounds of war. So, Madam President, as I conclude, I have to tell you that I remain hopeful that somehow this Congress can find a way, even in the midst of this partisan rancor, to pass this defense authorization bill for the 49th consecutive year. I'm willing to stay until Christmas, even through Christmas and the week after, to get this done. And I'll tell you, if we can't get Don't Ask, Don't Tell repealed as a part of the defense authorization bill, I'm willing to stay through the holidays to debate it on the floor as a standalone measure. And I'll urge my colleagues to join me in that debate. So, despite the vote today, I have to say I'm optimistic about our future, and I'm committed, as I know the presiding officer is, to a new kind of politics where we can find consensus among our disagreement. I know the members of our states and Americans at large want us to tackle tough decisions. It's why they sent us here, to resolve the tough problems, but I think opportunities that are inherent in those problems that led us to want to serve in the nation's capital. So let's reach out to each other. Let's find common ground. Let's call on each other to work together to accomplish our shared priorities and demonstrate support for our armed forces. After all, they're standing up for us. We can stand up for them. Americans sent us here to do no less.